mean, all the stores are full, they're like full on. They don't know what they're doing. They're playing Christmas carols. They're proclaiming the birth of Christ in the midst of this extravaganza. Santa Claus, St. Nicholas of Myrna can be found in every mall. It's really remarkable. And the TV commercials, I mean, they take on the absolute spiritual. Everything is spiritually heightened this time of year, isn't it? I just love Advent. I brought with me some of the things that our family will be using over these next Sundays as we celebrate Advent. Got to have the adjustable Santa's hat, of course, to start with. And of course, there's all kinds of things in there. There's ornaments of all types, some religious, some less so. Of course, we have the creche scene, and he's right next to the cowboy boot. Or here's a horse's head, even better. I'm not sure what the horse's head has to do with that, but there you go. We have the jingle bells, of course, birds. Our pickle, which always establishes who gets to open the first gift if you find the pickle on the Christmas tree. Our pickle broke this year, apparently. Don't tell my wife. Let's see, all kinds of stuff. We've got shiny ones that we bought from the store. They're shiny and perfect. And of course, we have some that we purchased in Germany. We have some that were given to us by friends and family members that take on their own special appeal. Some of them are perfect. Some of them were made by my kids in 2001, so though they may not be perfect and shiny and bright, they're perfect to me. Kids were yet young when those were made. I love Advent. Pretty soon, we'll have a Christmas tree in our house, like many of you, and you'll be stringing lights on it, as we will be. I'll have lights on the tree, and then they'll be on the fence, and then they'll be on the gate. And there'll be lights eventually running around the eaves of my house. There'll be special Christmas-themed table runners that will be on all the tables, of course, and there will be tinsel and garland draped over everything. There'll be many creche scenes, nativity scenes, telling the story of the night in which Jesus was born. I collect them. We have a lot of them. They'll be all over the house. I love Advent. Then outside the house, with most of you, most of the time, we'll be gathering for parties and for dinners and gatherings, caroling, baking cookies, giving goodies to friends and neighbors. I just love Advent. Don't you love Advent? You can't forget about the shopping and the gift giving. I mean, Black Friday, that's a memory. But tomorrow is Cyber Monday. It's still exciting. There are all kinds of things that people want. You put together your list, right? You get your list together, things that you want, and you get to give people the things that they want. How joyous when they open it up and they say, perfect, just what I wanted. Or when you're shopping, you find just that thing. Now, it's not on their list. It may never have made their list. They don't know that they need it, but it is a perfect thing for them. Or maybe it's something about your relationship or something that happened that year, and you find this gift that is just perfect, and you buy it, and you're waiting with eager anticipation for that moment on Christmas morning or Christmas Eve when you open packages and you get that smirk or that eye roll or the increasing joy of the fact that you really thought about them and you got them something perfect, perfectly unexpected. I can't wait for that moment. I love Advent. I know. You want to correct me and say, no, it's not Advent that you love, it's Christmas. But no, it's not really the case. I understand what you mean, but the reason that I love Advent is because without the time of preparation, without the time of preparing for Christmas, without the hype and the energy and the anticipation of Christmas, Christmas, when it arrives, wouldn't be the same. Now, this weekend you had Thanksgiving. Now, if mom or grandma was at home cooking the turkey and all the stuffings and all the things, and she was looking out the window waiting for the kids to come, versus a grandma who plopped herself on the couch with the drapes open looking for someone to come, which grandma is more prepared? The one who's doing the work, right? The one who's actually preparing and not just watching. Advent preparation is prelude to celebration, and it itself takes on the nature of the celebration. If you aren't ready for Christmas, when it comes that morning, you may feel sad or regretful or embarrassed around the Christmas tree on Christmas morning because you didn't try hard enough for the people that you love. Or maybe you'll arrive at the first Sunday after Christmas, and you'll realize that we've already sung all the good hymns of Christmas carols, and you didn't set your sights high enough for the awe and majesty that Christmas brings to our time of worship, and you missed it. You weren't ready for it. The joy of Christmas is found in the joy of Advent preparation. And just as Advent waiting and participation shapes the kind of Christmas celebration you're going to have, the fact that Christ has already arrived in the first Christmas shapes the kind of waiting and anticipation and expectation that makes the season of Advent unique. Now, you know what I mean if you've been with us over the last few weeks and the end of the church year. Again, today is the first Sunday of the church year, so we get to start all over. It's a reset. It's the year of Mark, where we read Mark's gospel primarily. Last year, meaning last Sunday and the Sundays of November, we featured Matthew. And we read gospel readings in the book of Matthew that sounded an awful lot like today's reading from Mark 13, didn't it? Stay awake, be alert, be watchful. But there's a difference in waiting for one you've already anticipating, one who's already come, versus waiting for a future that you don't know what is going to be revealed. There's a difference in those two types of waiting. Now, we could talk about the differences in the nature of apocalypse. This is, in Mark 13, what's called the little apocalypse. I guess compared to the book of Daniel or Revelation, which are the big apocalypses, this is a little apocalypse. Or we could spend some time talking about the various visions among Christian tribes that talk about end times and how we understand them completely differently. But I think we ought to let Mark tell us something about this himself. I mean, on this morning, it's the first morning of year B, the year that we read the gospel readings almost exclusively out of Mark's gospel. And this being the first Sunday of his year, maybe we should read something from the end of the Gospel of Mark, which is what we did. I don't know who in the lectionary thought this was a good idea, but apparently they were following Stephen Covey's idea that start with the end in mind. And so we start the year at the end of the Gospel of Mark. Now, along with loving Advent, I love the Gospel of Mark. It's my favorite gospel. I know, all of you love John. Oh, you're going to get it this year. I love the Gospel of Mark. Now, in our passage today, Mark utilizes an interesting foreshadowing of the Passion that is the reading that's going to immediately follow our gospel reading for today. Zach, do you have that up? Can you go forward into that? You have, I forgot to tell you about that. No, maybe so. From first service. It'll be a little easier if you can see it. Notice in our reading, somewhere around verse 34 or 35, that Jesus warns the servants about this unknown time, there you go, when the master will come back to his house. And it says he will come in the evening, or maybe at midnight, or at cockcrow, or at dawn. We just don't know when, so we should be ready. Now, notice the way Mark, if you were going to continue, or if you pulled your Bible out and you started reading forward in Mark, you'll see how Mark divides up the Passion reading in those four time frames. First, the Last Supper. It says he gathers together with his disciples when it was evening. In the evening, as I underlined in our passage for today. Mark 14:17. And then he moves out to the Garden of Gethsemane for prayer and betrayal there. And we read, and once more he came, and he found the disciples sleeping, for their eyes were heavy because it was the middle of the night. Midnight. Midnight in our reading for today. At the close of Jesus' trial, Peter denies knowing Jesus the third time. And what happens when Peter denies him? A cock crows. A third time, just as the cock crowed. And at the end of the sequence, in chapter 15, at the end of that evening of trial among the Jewish leaders, then Jesus is delivered to Pilate, and it says, as soon as it was morning, otherwise known as dawn. The master of the house may come at evening, at midnight, at cockcrow, or at dawn. Now, Mark, who has a beautiful piece of literature, I think intentionally depicts Jesus as declaring that his return, when the heavens will shake and the sun won't give its light. Do you remember what happens in Mark's gospel at the crucifixion when he's nailed on the tree? There's an earthquake and an eclipse. If we look back in chapter 13, that's exactly what Jesus is talking about is going to happen. The heavens are shaken. From this perspective, Mark isn't simply mediating various Christian traditions around the end-time expectation, whether it's near or far away, but he's inviting us to imagine that whenever Jesus may come again, whether it's imminently nearby or whether it's a long time off, all of our anticipation and all of our preparation for Jesus' second advent should be shaped by his first, in the form of a vulnerable infant or a man hanging on a cross. That should shape our expectation of who's coming next. More than that, I think that Mark is inviting us to look for Jesus, even here, even now, in similar places of vulnerability, of openness, similar places of need. I mean, what God delivers on that first Christmas shapes the kind of waiting and preparation we do during Advent, right? We're simply joyous because Christ comes into our midst in flesh. And so Advent is a season that can be filled with waiting, but with joy. It's not just a Lenten series where we're waiting with agony or repentance. It's we're waiting for something wonderful. Our waiting and our preparing are marked by the presence of the Christ child. Our Advent waiting then is done in joy because Jesus is already present. He's here. The one who is coming has come, and he's with us now. Now, I want to invite you to look in this season for Jesus in the need of those who are around you and to be awake to God's presence in response to your own need. I invite you to an awareness in this kind of ambivalent and often overlooked season we call Advent, just 4 Sundays, that's marked equally, in equal measures, by joyful anticipation and by, admittedly, hectic, even pressured preparations. I mean, all these things that I love about Advent that I talked about before, the dinners, the decorating, the shopping, the buying, the gathering, each event and all of them can be wonderful, and we can love them. And each and every one of them can also be overwhelming. And so I invite you to a different kind of awareness in this season, a different kind of waking up, a different kind of mindfulness in your preparations into this living in a time of preparing, of putting up lights, of listening to songs about why grandma keeps getting run over, and songs that don't make any sense to the sacred ones that do. And maybe you could make a list, maybe in your head or maybe even on paper, of a few of the things that are going to occupy your time in this 4 weeks before Christmas. And to think about how in each of those events and how in each of those activities you might be more attentive to the vulnerability and need of those who are around you. And to be perhaps more honest about your own need so that you just might receive the care of others at the same time. I invite you to look at and wonder and enjoy the world's celebration of Christmas. Everything from the ridiculous, shiny, fluorescent-nosed reindeer flying through the air, a big fat guy delivering gifts through tiny entrances to your house called chimneys, and probably most of you don't have chimneys, so good luck, to the crazy songs, to the materialism. I say, enjoy it all. And feel sorry. Because when the world pulls up and stops its celebration, all it gets is the pregame. That's like watching the Super Bowl, but not actually watching the game. just the commentary beforehand about what you're prepping for, but never actually getting to celebrate the fulfillment of it. And that's what the world does. Because when they finish with Christmas, we are just getting started and celebrating the fact that our God is with us, that our God has been with us in the past, and that our God will be with us into the future, and that in God all our hopes and dreams are met in a man who loves us and gives his life for us. It's tragic to cut off the main event, saving the prelude as if it's the most important part and missing the fulfillment. For the gift-giving, the decorating, the busyness is only prelude for the joy our God has for us, the one who is coming, the one who has come in the flesh, and who by his merciful presence wants to shape even the preparations we're making now, right now, as he's among us. Maybe this way we can find the joy of Advent by going deeper into it, not by being busier, but by thinking some more about it and about what we're doing while we're doing all that busyness, that underneath it all we're preparing for a joy that has no comparison, and that in that preparation we're being shaped by a joyous waiting for our Master who is coming. And that's why I love Advent, and I hope you love Advent too. Amen. Let's sing together. If you'll join with me and stand, we'll have our